Back for another Drop the Mic. Just me this week. I have enjoyed the guests. I thought Mike Feeney was very good. I thought the Rad Dudecast guys were awesome. I can't wait to have them on again, hopefully down the road, because that was just a lot of fun. And I think a good representation of their podcast, if you want to check them out. It was very funny. And then Mark Normand, that got the most buzz, I would say. Although the feedback was that I may have oversold how awkward it was. I think most of it was good. I think it was a pretty decent interview, and then at the end it got a little awkward. I honestly so Mark Normand is very fun. We'll get to his special in a minute, but he is a funny guy. I think we're just two awkward guys, and that's why it came off the way it did. And then the clip we played. Maybe I'm being naive. Maybe Kirk's right, and the guy fucking hated me. But I felt like it was just we're two awkward people, and it was an awkward exchange at the end. But if you haven't listened to those yet, I would suggest you go back and catch up on all of them. But today we've just got the good old fashioned comedy reviews. A few new specials came out, and we'll also preview a new special that came out that I want to talk about. But first, I'll start. I guess I'll start with Mark Normand because despite the conversation on the Kirk Minahan show this week, I do think his special was awesome. I think it was maybe the best of the year that's come out so far. Sam Morril had a really good one, and Louis obviously had a great one. But I would put Mark Normand's right up there. I guess I think playing it on the show, while it was funny to hear Kirk and Steve rip on it, it's just out of context. Like that's not obviously a good spot to find someone's stand up. So I would give it a chance. It's on YouTube. Me and Mark talked last week about how it's very strange. Guys like Mark and Sam Morril, if you're kind of just a generic looking white guy, you're not going to get a special on Netflix right now unless you're already famous, like unless you're grandfathered in. So YouTube seems to be the way a lot of guys are doing it. I think Mark's special is very funny, and he gets his message across, but there's not this. He doesn't beat you over the head with a message. You kind of see where he stands on certain issues, but it's mostly just jokes, jokes, jokes. So you don't have to worry about like Patton Oswalt's a little more political, which we'll get to him in a second. It's nothing like that. It's really just, I think, joke after joke, kind of like a less dark Anthony Jeselnik, I guess. Might be the best example from Mark's style. I don't know if that's a great comparison. But I think if you like a guy like Jeselnik, you'll like a guy like Mark Normand. I would give his new special Out to Lunch, available on YouTube now. I would give that I'd put it right with Louis and Sam Morril. I'm giving it an 8.9. No, I don't think anyone's hit that 9.0 mark yet. But I'm giving Mark an 8.9. Another new special that came out last week, and I'll give you a free podcast recommendation. Our guys, Big Cat and PFT, had Patton Oswalt on a couple weeks ago. And I would go check that out. I thought it was an interesting discussion. And Patton Oswalt's an interesting guy to me because he has been adopted by like the alt comedy scene. Like very woke people love Patton Oswalt. And he politically, I think he fits that side. But as a comedian, he's very open-minded. And, when you hear him talk on Pardon My Take, I think he did a good job representing his thoughts on a lot of things. I disagree with him on certain things, and I hate his Twitter. I think I unfollowed him on Twitter because it was just maybe he's different now, but it was so fuck Trump for a while where it was just like, all right, Pat, we get it. He talks about that kind of stuff in his special, and it's funny to hear his perspective on it when you see how much he was tweeting about it for a while. But overall, I thought it was good. There's some funny shit in there. I think it gets funnier towards the end. It's a nice watch, maybe a date night. I didn't think it was great. It wasn't his best special, but it was pretty decent. And for a guy that just is now in his 50s, which we'll talk about Jerry Seinfeld in a second, it's tougher to grade guys as they get older. You kind of see them start to be less relatable to you, or maybe you've seen their stuff too much, where it's like, I've kind of seen this before. But I thought it was, let's call it a decent special. What I would give a 6.8 for Patton Oswalt's new Netflix venture. And then the other special I want to review real quick. I've talked about it a lot, but I haven't officially done it here. It's a little older now, but I just thought Jerry Seinfeld's special was awful. I think I didn't go that hard when me and Kirk were talking about it, but the more I've thought about it, it was just dog shit. Because I think the reason I wasn't as hard is because it's Jerry Seinfeld. But if I watched anyone else do that special, I would turn it off after 5 minutes. I'd be like, well, this is dog shit. He's doing Pop Tart bits, and he's now become a caricature of not even Seinfeld, of Larry David, basically, where he's this old grump. Oh, what's new in the world except that isn't terrible? That kind of a vibe he gives off. I mean, I think he literally said that an actual line from his special. I thought it was really bad, and it bums me out because Seinfeld's my favorite show ever. And every time I've seen Seinfeld stand up in the last 10, 12 years, it's just been dog shit. I think I mentioned this on the show, but he was on Letterman once, and he's doing this bit about Star 69, which, if you're my age, you probably don't even know what that is. Actually, I don't know what it is. Is it it blocks your number or it calls people back or something? But anyways, he does it. Can't they pick any other number? 68, 70? Did no one go to junior high here? We'll look up Seinfeld Letterman. I think 2011 or 2012. It's abysmal. But yeah, this special was no different really. And uh, Jerry's other Netflix special, where it's some of his older stuff, even go look back, I'm like, maybe it was funnier in the 80s and 90s, and I just don't have that perspective. We live in a different world now, so maybe it doesn't not as relatable to me. But Seinfeld's stand up, I really do not love. And he said this is probably his last one because you want to leave him wanting more. Well, I think he should have stopped maybe 2 or 3 ago because I don't know anyone that loved that special. There will be people that say it was good, just because it was Seinfeld. I think I don't know if you dabbed him with some truth serum. I don't know if they'd be saying that, but I would give it 4.2. There were some okay jokes in there, but overall, it was abysmal. So those are my official reviews for the week. We'll get to a new special that's out in a minute, but I have not watched it yet because I kind of want to watch with you guys. I want to alert you to something I'm going to be talking about because it's an interesting one. Before we get to Hannah Gadsby and a couple podcasts I want to talk about, we'll get to some news and comedy. The Jimmy Fallon thing really bothered me. The more and more that saga played out, because now I'm worried. We're doing this on Sunday here. I'm worried that tomorrow night he's going to bring it up again. My assumption is that they'll just ignore it, that it'll never come up on the Tonight Show. But he was off for a week. No one gave a shit. No one was going after him. I don't know why he apologized. That was infuriating to me. But if he apologizes again on air, that's going to be brutal. Now, if it's tearful, that's a whole nother ballgame. That's insane. But even if he addresses it at all, I won't understand unless he does it in a funny or interesting way, which I doubt he will. If he does this, woe is me type of thing, then I'll be infuriated. If you don't know, obviously, Jimmy Fallon got in trouble, I guess, for impersonating Chris Rock on SNL and doing it in blackface, which my contention would be that it would be much stranger if Jimmy Fallon came out looking like Jimmy Fallon and pretending to be Chris Rock on Who Wants to Be a Billionaire. It wouldn't make any fucking sense. You'd be like, oh, why is Jimmy Fallon doing this voice? And, we talked about how Fred Armisen played Obama, and there's a million examples of Eddie Murphy or Chappelle or the Wayans brothers doing white face. What Jimmy Fallon did wasn't blackface. It wasn't what look up what fucking Ted Danson or Howard Stern had done in the past. It wasn't that. It was impersonating a guy who's a different skin tone than him, so they had to put makeup on him. But I think what Jimmy Fallon did by apologizing is just it's bad for comedy and society in general. But more than that, what I noticed is we were all kind of like, oh well, he apologized. It's a reflex, They tapped Jimmy Fallon's knee and he kicked. Like, it's just, oh, I'm in trouble, so I'm supposed to apologize. That's the scariest part of it, is that we're now in a place where if someone calls you out for something like that, you just say sorry. Now, what he should have done is said if he had any, if he cared about his, not to sound too douchey, but his craft, his work at all, what he would have done is said, listen, it was 20 years ago. At the time, I thought it was funny. It would be hypocritical of me to come out now, 20 years later, and pretend I didn't think it was funny at the time. At the time, if people were outraged, that's a different story. But you can't go back in time and pretend you might have been outraged then because it just doesn't work. You know, it was on NBC. It was on a huge show called Saturday Night Live. They weren't getting away with one. They didn't sneak it by us. If people were really offended, there would have been outrage at the time. So I think Jimmy Fallon, for a lot of reasons, is bad for comedy. I think taking over the Tonight Show, and I mean, listen, he made his own thing with it, but I think taking over the Tonight Show and turning it into, a beer pong tournament or wacky Justin Timberlake sketches, I don't think that's great for comedy either. Although, I guess the only positive would be that I don't think a ton of people are watching. So it's not, it's not Johnny Carson doing it circa 1978. But yeah, Jimmy Fallon overall, I think that was a pathetic display, and I would say tune in maybe to the monologue tomorrow night because there's a chance. I don't think it's going to happen, but there is a chance you get douche chills all over again when he gives some heartfelt apology live on camera. And then the other thing that I thought was on a more positive note, I guess the Rogan thing. We haven't talked about that here, but I think that's a very good sign for podcasting. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out because Rogan and Bill Simmons, and I guess Barstool to a degree, the sale of Barstool probably had a lot to do with their podcast network. But those are all good signs, but they are the first. And you wonder, does that mean it's going to keep growing? Like you see Larry King, another, they threw $5 million. I know Kirk said he's probably never going to make that, but even if it's $1 million, whatever it is, you're throwing a shit ton of money at a guy like Larry King who might have some sort of audience, but it's not going to be huge. I think that's a good sign for podcasting, but it'll have to work. Like if Rogan bombs on Spotify, if no one listens or watches, that's bad news. Then these deals go away. The Bill Simmons deals and the Rogan and Larry King, those are gone if they all fail. So it'll be interesting to see how it works. And it'll be interesting to see if his audience changes at all. Like, are people going to go to Spotify? I will probably not download Spotify just for Rogan. Now, if you have Rogan and maybe one or two other podcasts over there that I'm into, maybe that changes things. So I'm curious to see how Spotify handles that and how Rogan's audience follows him. Now for the podcasts, it was nice to have a little break where we did the interviews because it actually gave me a chance to listen to and enjoy some podcasts. And one I found that I'm surprised there's not more. I mean, neither of these guys are huge, but I think them doing a podcast together, I thought there would have been a little more buzz around. But the podcast Bad Friends with Andrew Santino and Bobby Lee, it's really funny. I think those guys have a great dynamic. They're hilarious together. Both of their podcasts separately are pretty good, but I think them together is phenomenal. And I like that you're starting to see that with like Two Bears, One Cave, Bastard Radio, which I talked about a couple weeks ago, which I'm not sure if they're even doing anymore. But there are shows like that now where they're coming together and saying like, hey, we're both successful. We have good chemistry. Why not do a podcast together? That's what Bobby Lee and Andrew Santino did. And the episodes I've listened to so far are very funny. Like I said, they're just they click together. It's better than listening to Andrew Santino or Bobby Lee with a guest that they don't gel with quite as much. It's going to be consistent every week, I think. So I would check out Bad Friends if you're looking for a new podcast. And then the episode I checked out recently, which I liked a lot, is it's a podcast called Mindful Metal Jacket. Horrible title, but it's a good podcast, and it's about just that mindfulness, and it's kind of a therapeutic podcast. It's about mental health, but it's done by comedian Joe List, who is Mark Norman's partner on Tuesdays with Stories. But he does this podcast separately, where he has just a comedian guest on, and they kind of talk about therapy and mental health or their issues. It's not going to be for everyone, But the reason it stood out to me, so the episode I'm referring to is the one he did. You got to go a couple weeks back to the episode he did with Dan Soder, and I kind of just wanted to turn people onto it because I related to it a lot, and it's funny talking about this the night after I drank, or the morning after I drank last night for the first time in a few months. But it was therapeutic for me because these guys went through some similar issues to me. I think the drinking part for them was more serious, but some of the side effects that go along with it, the lack of confidence or people thinking you need to please people, that was interesting to me because that was more my problem with drinking. And I think I've done a good job dealing with that, but no, who gives a shit? But the reason I bring it up is that when I was dealing with that stuff originally, a few people reached out and said, hey, I can relate to what you're going through right now. I had similar problems. And if that's the case, if you're one of those people who might have a problem with drinking or just in general self-esteem issues, confidence issues, I think the Dan Soder episode of Mindful Metal Jacket with Joe List was very good. And I think it'll be therapeutic for you. It's a good listen. So I would recommend you go check both of those podcasts out right now. And hopefully the Mindful Metal Jacket episode can help a few people. I think that's a good podcast in general. If you're sort of into mental health or maybe you're in a bad place, I think that's a good one to check out. So lastly, we typically get into the work of someone that, we try and do a little constructive criticism, help someone along. But this is more, I guess it probably won't be a fair review next week because I think my mind is already made up just based on the trailer. But I wanted to get you guys on board. Hopefully you can watch along with me and we'll discuss it next week. The trailer, so if you don't know who Hannah Gadsby is, she did a quote unquote comedy special called Nanette, and it got rave reviews by a certain segment of the population. Some people loved it. I think if you liked comedy, you hated it. Now, in general, I don't really think it's fair for people that don't like a special to just jump on and say it's dog shit because maybe it's just not for you. Like, I didn't like the Seinfeld thing, and I think I even said in my review that if you say you like it, you're lying. But maybe there's some people that genuinely like it. What do I know? Maybe there's some people that like Crystalia or Brendan Schaub or these people. And that's fine. If you like Hannah Gadsby, great. What I didn't like, and the reason I think she got the attention of so many people in comedy, is because she did an interview around the time the special was coming out. And I forget if she mentioned Kevin Hart by name or if that was just the conclusion that everyone drew based on what she said. But basically, she said people like Kevin Hart. Like, if you're just doing comedy for laughs and you don't have a message, you shouldn't be doing comedy, which I thought is a horrible message. Doesn't make any sense. If people want to laugh at something, they should be able to laugh at it. But it's also interesting because now Hannah Gadsby thinks she's going to have this hard-hitting message in every comedy special. So she did that with Nanette. Great. Let's see how she tackles Netflix special number 2 with Douglas. If we can bring that trailer up, we'll see how the trailer looks. I try not to make up your mind before we watch it for next week.
I had no plans to make it in America. If you're here because of Nanette, why?
Okay, pause.
How do I know?
If you're here because of the crazy successful thing I did, why? You should. Whoa. Well, I mean, Hannah, that's where you built your audience. You can't now suddenly do this thing of, I'm different. I'm so different. I built my message off of she survived a horrible tragedy, which that's great. If you want to talk about that, that's awesome. But you can't now be like, oh, I'm just a silly gal. I'm just having some fun. I'm telling a few yuck jokes. Continue, I guess. Let's see where this goes.
Known just how wildly popular trauma was going to be in the context of comedy, I might have budgeted my shit a bit better.
Wonder what the message
but
is here.
I went and put all my trauma eggs into one basket like a fucking idiot, and now here we are.
Okay, pause. So the first half of the trailer is basically just saying, remember how I got all you guys to be a fan of mine based on this traumatic experience I had? Well, I mean, I got other stuff. Okay, that's great. How about just showing us the other stuff? You know who wouldn't do that is a Carlin or Louis C.K. or these prolific people who churn out specials. They don't spend minutes telling you like, "Hey, I got plenty of other stuff here. Don't worry about it. I'm just gonna I'm just gonna crank out these specials. What are you here for? If you like trauma so much, what are you doing here?" They don't need that because it wasn't their. It was never their crutch. They never had something that they relied on to get attention. But I think you'll find interesting when Hannah does break away from talking about her traumatic experience. Her other stuff, she says you have to have a message. Well, her other stuff is pretty interesting. There's an interesting message going on with Hannah Gadsby.
When I first started touring here, I was told I should Americanize my language, to which I responded, fuck off. I mean, I've made some concessions for you. I'm not a monster. Aluminum? Mm-hmm. Why would you say aluminium when you can flirt it? Aluminum.
What's the deal? Well, people like to say salsa. Is it salsa or seltzer? Imagine a person with a Hispanic accent trying to say salsa. What's the deal with that? So Anna Gatsby is this person who's shitting on guys like Kevin Hart because they don't have a message, and now she's doing pronunciation material. Aluminum, aluminium. Which is it? I don't understand. What's the deal with aluminum? So maybe get off your high horse, Hannah Gatsby. Maybe that wasn't a great idea to tell everyone they need a message because now you're reduced to doing pronunciation material. Which, hey, that's great. If you can make a funny bit out of the word aluminum, awesome. Like on, when we played Mark Norman's special on the show, Kirk was like, is he really doing airplane jokes? But hey, if you make it funny, then it doesn't matter what the subject is. But you can't be the person that says, well, why do you just talk about your kids, Kevin Hart? Why do you just talk about having a family? That's stupid. You need a message. Well, now you're doing pronunciation jokes. So let's see what else Hannah has.
Stop it, America. And y'all, I'm taking y'all. I love y'all because y'all is the best, most inclusive second-person plural pronoun in the English-speaking world.
What are you cheering? Why are they cheering?
Thank you, the South. What an ally.
Because they're not typically that progressive. So that's Hannah Gatsby's trailer for Douglas. It seems like a lot of pronunciation stuff, so that'll be fun. But I'm curious what her message is now. She had this great message in the first one, and that's terrific if you like that kind of stuff. But don't judge others in your glass house there, Hannah, because the stones are coming now. Now people have to see what you really have as a comedian. I don't get the cheering. That's a big thing in comedy now too with a lot of specials is you go for cheers instead of laughs. What's the deal with y'all? Y'all is a word. Woo! Hannah. I don't get it. But maybe when I watch the full thing, I'll have a better scope. So that's your homework for this week, folks. Go watch Hannah Gatsby's Douglas, and we'll talk about it together next week. Maybe I'll do a watch along. We'll see. I don't know if comedy is the best for that, but we'll see how I'm feeling. Until next time. Oh, before we go, I wanted to mention this as well. I've enjoyed having the guests, Mike Feeney, Greg Stone, Brendan Ayer, Anthony DeVito, Mark Normand, Shane Gillis. I've enjoyed all those guys, but if there's someone you guys want me to have on that you think I can get, let's not be ridiculous. Old Mikey's reach is not that wide. But if there's someone you think I can get that I should have on the podcast, reach out to me, reach out to them, tell them to do it, whatever. But let me know if there's a guest you want me to have on that you think would actually do the show. I'd be more than happy to. So we'll see what next week's Drop the Mic brings. And until then, good riddance.